Mira stepped over the threshold of her new home, her heart a mix of excitement and anxiety. The wedding had been a whirlwind, and now, just a week later, she found herself in the grand, imposing house of the Kapoor family. It was a sprawling estate, with rooms that echoed with the history of generations and a quiet sense of tradition that seemed almost oppressive. "Welcome home, Mira," her husband, Arjun, said. He looked genuinely happy. She returned his smile, pushing down the unease that had begun to settle in the pit of her stomach. They were greeted by Arjun's mother, Sushma, a kind-faced woman who embraced Mira warmly. "I'm so glad you're here, Beta. It's wonderful to have another woman in the house." The days that followed were a blur. "Mira," Raj Kapoor called out one morning as she was preparing breakfast. He was seated at the dining table, his eyes fixed on her. "I like my tea with 2 teaspoons of sugar and a slice of lemon. And breakfast should be served by 7:30 sharp. I hope you can manage that." Mira nodded, slightly taken aback. "Of course, Papa." Mira realized that this was only the beginning. Raj Kapoor's demands grew more specific and frequent. He wanted his clothes ironed in a particular way, his newspapers arranged neatly, and his meals prepared according to his exacting standards. Every morning, he would call out instructions, and every evening, he would inspect the results, his silence more damning than any criticism. Arjun, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware of the growing tension. He was caught up in his work, leaving early and returning late, his time with Mira limited to brief moments before sleep claimed them both. Mira didn't want to burden him with her troubles, not yet, anyway. She was determined to handle it on her own. But as the weeks went by, Mira's patience began to wear thin. She found herself resenting the way Raj Kapoor treated her, as if she were a servant, there to cater to his every whim. She had left a promising career in marketing to marry Arjun, and now she felt her identity slowly being erased, reduced to a role she hadn't agreed to play. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of fulfilling her father-in-law's demands, Mira made a decision. She would not confront him directly, not yet, but she would no longer comply so eagerly. She would start small, testing the waters, pushing back in ways that were subtle yet significant. The next morning, Mira deliberately forgot to add the slice of lemon to Raj Kapoor's tea. She served breakfast a few minutes late, just enough to cause a flicker of irritation on his face. When he asked for his shirt to be ironed, she left a tiny crease, barely noticeable but enough to make him frown. "Is this how you used to do things in your parents' house?" His tone dripping with condescension as he inspected the slightly wrinkled shirt. Mira met his gaze steadily, her expression neutral. "I'm sorry, Papa. I must have missed that. I'll be more careful next time." But there was no apology in her voice, and Raj Kapoor knew it. The tension between them grew, each day a silent battle of wills. Mira continued to forget tasks, each oversight a calculated move in her quiet rebellion. She knew she was playing a dangerous game, but she couldn't bring herself to stop. It was the only way she could maintain a semblance of control in a situation where she felt increasingly powerless. The final straw came one evening when Raj Kapoor found that his favorite meal hadn't been prepared to his exact specifications. His temper flared, and for the first time, he raised his voice at Mira, his anger spilling over in a torrent of harsh words. "This is unacceptable," he shouted, slamming his hand on the dining table. "You can't even manage a simple task like cooking. What kind of daughter-in-law are you?" Arjun, who had just returned home, walked into the room to find his father berating Mira. He looked between them, confusion and concern etched on his face. "Papa, what's going on?" Arjun asked, his voice calm but firm. Raj Kapoor turned to his son, his face red with anger. "Your wife doesn't know how to do anything properly. She's been slacking off, ignoring my requests, and now this. I've had enough." Mira stood silently, her heart pounding in her chest. She had known this moment would come, but she hadn't expected it to happen so suddenly, so explosively. Arjun looked at Mira, his expression softening as he saw the strain in her eyes. Mira, is this true? Mira met his gaze, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. I've been doing my best, Arjun. But I'm not just here to serve. I'm your wife, not a servant. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Raj Kapoor stared at Mira, his anger slowly giving way to something else, something more dangerous. He had never been challenged like this before, especially not by a woman, and the realization left him momentarily speechless. Arjun stepped forward, placing a hand on Mira's shoulder. Papa, Mira is right. She's part of this family, not someone to be ordered around. We need to treat her with respect. Raj Kapoor's eyes narrowed, his lips pressing into a thin line. Is that so? We'll see how long that lasts. The confrontation ended as abruptly as it had begun, with Raj Kapoor storming out of the room. The house felt different the morning after the confrontation. Raj Kapoor's outburst the night before had shaken her, not because of its intensity, she had expected that, but because of the subtle shift in Arjun's behavior afterward. He had defended her, yes, but there had been something else in his eyes. Doubt? Worry? She couldn't tell, and it gnawed at her as she went about her morning routine. The silence was broken by the sound of footsteps. Mira turned to see Sushma entering the kitchen, her face etched with concern. Mira, beta, Sushma began softly, approaching her. Are you okay? Last night was difficult. Mira forced a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. I'm fine, Ma. Just a little shaken. I didn't mean for things to escalate like that. Sushma sighed, her hand gently squeezing Mira's arm. I know. Your father-in-law can be difficult. But he's old-fashioned, set in his ways. It's not easy for him to accept change. Does that mean I just have to accept his behavior? No, beta. But you have to be careful. Raj has always been the head of this household, and he's not used to being challenged, especially by someone new to the family. Mira nodded, understanding the delicate balance she had to maintain. I'll try to keep that in mind, Ma. But I can't let him treat me like this. I won't. Sushma looked at her, a flicker of pride in her eyes. I see that you're strong, Mira. Just remember, you're not alone. I'm here for you, and so is Arjun. We'll support you, but you have to choose your battles wisely. The confrontation had only deepened the divide between her and Raj Kapoor, and she knew that things would only get worse before they got better, if they got better at all. As the days passed, Mira continued her quiet rebellion, each small act of defiance a ripple in the calm surface of the Kapoor household. She began to notice the little things that had once escaped her attention, Raj Kapoor's subtle jabs, the way he would deliberately ignore her presence, and the pointed remarks that seemed to question her worth. The days that followed, Mira found herself sinking deeper into her rebellion, each act of forgetfulness, a small victory in a battle she was determined to win. The once harmonious Kapoor household had become a battleground, with Mira and Raj Kapoor on opposing sides, locked in a silent war that neither could afford to lose. One evening, after another grueling day, Mira sat in her room, the soft glow of a lamp casting long shadows on the walls. Arjun had just returned from work, his tired smile a stark contrast to the weight of the day's events. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her with concern. You seem distant, Mira, is everything okay? Mira looked up from the book she wasn't really reading, forcing a smile. I'm just tired, Arjun. It's been a long day. Arjun moved closer, sitting beside her on the bed. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I know it's been tough, living here with my parents. But if something is bothering you, you can tell me. She hesitated, the words on the tip of her tongue. She wanted to tell him about the constant pressure, the demeaning comments, the way Raj Kapoor seemed to relish in making her life difficult. But she couldn't bring herself to burden Arjun with that knowledge, not yet. She wasn't ready to expose the full extent of her struggles, fearing it might push him further away. Instead, she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm managing, Arjun. It's just an adjustment." Arjun sighed, wrapping an arm around her. "If there's anything I can do to make it easier, just say the word." Mira closed her eyes, savoring the warmth of his embrace. "Just being here helps," she whispered, though deep down, she knew it wasn't enough. The next day, after another confrontation with Raj Kapoor, Mira caught a glimpse of Sushma watching from the doorway, her expression one of quiet concern. Their eyes met briefly before Mira turned away, feeling a pang of guilt. Sushma had always been kind to her, and Mira hated that her rebellion was creating more tension in the household. Later that evening, as Mira was preparing dinner, Sushma approached her in the kitchen. "Mira, beta, can we talk?" Mira looked up from the stove, nodding. "Of course, Ma. What's on your mind?" Sushma hesitated, glancing around to make sure they were alone. "I've noticed that things between you and Raj have been strained. I don't want to interfere, but I'm worried about you." Mira's heart softened at Sushma's words. She had always seen Sushma as a mother figure, someone she could trust. But how much could she confide without putting Sushma in a difficult position? "I'm okay, Ma," Mira said, offering a small smile. "It's just taking some time to adjust." Sushma sighed, stepping closer. "I know Raj can be difficult, but he's not a bad man. He's just set in his ways, and change doesn't come easily to him. But if you're unhappy, we need to find a way to make things better." Mira swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. "It's not just about adjusting, Ma. I'm trying my best, but it feels like nothing I do is ever good enough." Sushma reached out, gently cupping Mira's face in her hands. "You are good enough, beta. Don't ever doubt that. Raj may not show it, but he appreciates everything you do. He just has a hard time expressing it." As they finished preparing dinner, Sushma tried to lighten the mood by sharing stories from Arjun's childhood. Tales of his mischievous antics that brought a genuine smile to Mira's face. For a brief moment, the tension lifted, replaced by a sense of camaraderie that Mira desperately needed. But as the night wore on, another twist in the tale emerged, one that Mira hadn't seen coming. Arjun, sensing the growing tension between his wife and father, decided to take matters into his own hands. After dinner, as they prepared for bed, Arjun turned to Mira, his expression serious. "Mira, I think we need to talk about moving out." Mira blinked, taken aback. "Moving out? But where would we go?" "I've been thinking about it for a while," Arjun admitted. "Things haven't been the same since we moved in here. I think it's time we had our own space, our own home." Mira's heart leapt at the idea. The thought of leaving the Kapoor household, of escaping the suffocating atmosphere that had become her daily reality, was like a breath of fresh air. But she also knew that leaving wouldn't be easy. Raj Kapoor wouldn't let them go without a fight, and Mira wasn't sure how much more she could take. "Do you really think we can do it?" she asked, her voice tinged with both hope and doubt. Arjun nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "I do, Mira. We'll find a way. Together." As she looked into his eyes, Mira felt a renewed sense of strength. She wasn't alone in this fight, and with Arjun by her side, she believed they could overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. But even as they made plans for a future away from the Kapoor household, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. Raj Kapoor wouldn't let them go easily. Mira and Arjun quietly began making plans to move into their own place. They decided that Mira would return to work, and fortunately, she was able to resume her role in marketing. Being out of the house and having a concrete plan to escape her father-in-law's oppressive control invigorated Mira. Each day, she left earlier and returned later, meeting Arjun whenever possible so they could come home together. Yet, even as she navigated her work life, she still had to endure Raj Kapoor's relentless demands at home. It was as if he sensed their plans and was determined to make her suffer for it. After weeks of searching, they finally found a place. The night Arjun decided to share the news at dinner, the atmosphere was tense. As he spoke, revealing that they were moving out, Raj Kapoor's face darkened with fury. So, this is your doing, Mira, Raj Kapoor spat, his voice dripping with venom. You're trying to tear my family apart, aren't you? You've twisted my son's mind, turned him against his own family. Mira opened her mouth to respond, but Arjun cut in, his tone firm and resolute. No, Dad. Moving out was my decision. I'm fully aware of how you've been treating Mira, and I can't allow it to continue. My responsibility is to my wife, and if that means leaving this house, then so be it. Raj Kapoor stared at his son, disbelief mingling with his rage. You're choosing her over your family. Over your father. I'm choosing to protect my wife from the mistreatment she's endured under your roof, Arjun replied, his voice steady. I'm disappointed, Dad, disappointed that you couldn't respect the woman I love, that you chose to make her life difficult instead of welcoming her into the family. The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. Raj Kapoor's face twisted with a mix of anger and hurt, but Arjun remained unmoved. Mira, though shaken, felt a wave of relief wash over her. The decision had been made, and there was no turning back now. Later that evening, as the house settled into an uneasy quiet, Mira found Sushma in the kitchen, preparing a late-night snack. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the clink of dishes provided a stark contrast to the tension that had just unfolded at the dinner table. Mira approached her mother-in-law with a mix of apprehension and hope. Sushma looked up, her eyes filled with a gentle understanding. Without a word, Mira embraced her, her tears flowing freely. The release of emotion was overwhelming. Thank you, Mira whispered, her voice barely audible through her tears. I know you spoke to Arjun, encouraged him to move us out. I will always be grateful for your kindness. Sushma's eyes softened, and she gently patted Mira's back. I couldn't stand to see you suffer like this, she said quietly. You're part of this family, and you deserve to be treated with respect. Mira pulled back slightly, her eyes meeting Sushma's. I thought you might never speak up. I'm so thankful you did. Sushma smiled sadly. Sometimes, the hardest battles are fought quietly, behind closed doors. I wanted to make things right for you, for Arjun. I hope this new beginning brings you the happiness you deserve. The warmth of Sushma's words and the sincerity in her eyes gave Mira a renewed sense of hope. Though the path ahead was still uncertain, she felt a small but significant shift in the atmosphere. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly supported and understood. As they stood there, the kitchen light casting a soft glow around them, Mira realized that while the challenges were far from over, she wasn't alone in facing them. The silent rebellion was not just about her struggle, it was about the unexpected alliances and the strength that emerged from the most unlikely places. If you enjoyed the silent rebellion, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you captivating stories. Stay tuned for more chapters, where the drama, tension, and surprising twists continue. Thank you for watching.